I fucked up. I seriously, irreversibly fucked up. I'm writing this from a motel room somewhere outside of Denver, using a burner phone I bought at a gas station 2 hours ago. I don't even remember the name of the place. It's some shitty, rundown spot. Yellowing walls, suspicious stains on the sheets, and the stink of stale cigarettes that even the strongest air freshener can't hide. My heart hasn't slowed down since last night. It feels like I haven't breathed properly in days. Let me start from the beginning, because at this point, telling someone, anyone, feels like my only escape. I've always been into creepy shit. Reddit stories, true crime podcasts, 4chan horror threads, you name it, I've devoured it. I'm not the kind of guy who genuinely believes this stuff, though. It was all just entertainment, a way to pass the hours of my mindless IT support job. Life had gotten monotonous, dull, too fucking predictable. I was bored. And boredom, it turns out, can push a person to do some insanely stupid things. 3 weeks ago, I came across a post buried deep in a subreddit called r/darknet stories. It wasn't popular, just a thread with maybe 8 upvotes and a handful of vague comments. The OP mentioned something called the Last Man Standing Challenge, supposedly a twisted game hosted somewhere deep in the dark web. The premise sounded stupidly cliché, a survival game anonymously hosted, with tasks ranging from mildly disturbing to outright illegal. The winner would supposedly receive an absurd amount of Bitcoin. Like I said, stupid. And yet curiosity gnawed at me. It took me half a night and 4 shitty YouTube tutorials on Tor browsers and Onion sites, but eventually I found it. A plain black website with red text, no images, no links, just instructions. Sign up, wait for instructions, and never quit once you've started. Simple, ominous, but probably just some elaborate ARG or prank, right? Fuck, I was so wrong. I hesitated for a moment, fingers hovering over my keyboard, but boredom and the thrill of something new urged me forward. I typed in a fake name, Chris Warner, nothing special, just bland enough to blend in. I used an encrypted Proton email, set everything up neatly, and clicked submit. Nothing happened immediately. A full day went by without a response, then another. By the 3rd day, I'd nearly forgotten about it altogether until my phone buzzed at 2 a.m. The subject line read simply, "Welcome, Chris." The email contained only a single line of text and a file attachment. Your first task, watch the video and confirm. My hands were shaking slightly as I clicked on the video attachment. It buffered for a second, and then suddenly I was watching grainy CCTV footage from what looked like a security camera inside a fast food joint. It wasn't some vague clip. I recognized the interior immediately. It was the Burger King on 5th Street right near my apartment. The timestamp was live. I felt my blood freeze as I stared at the screen. A man, maybe in his early 20s, was sitting alone, headphones on, scrolling through his phone while finishing fries. He looked utterly oblivious. A sick feeling twisted in my gut because on the table right next to him, someone had clearly placed a small object, a neatly folded piece of paper. The email buzzed again with another short message. Go retrieve the note from table 7. You have 15 minutes. Fail or refuse and you lose. Lose? What the fuck did lose mean? My heart pounded painfully, adrenaline flooding my system. Without really thinking clearly, I grabbed my hoodie, jogged outside in a panicked daze, and sprinted toward Burger King. It felt surreal, running down the empty street at 2 in the morning to pick up some random note from a stranger's table, but panic and curiosity drowned out common sense. I burst through the door, chest heaving, and the guy barely glanced at me as I awkwardly approached his table. "Hey, I think I left something here earlier," I mumbled, heart racing so loud I thought he could probably hear it through my chest. He just nodded, eyes glazed over, lost in whatever bullshit he was watching on TikTok. I snatched the note without another word and bolted outside, unfolding the paper beneath the flickering streetlight. My stomach churned. Written neatly in blue ink, it simply read, "You've accepted the challenge. You're now player number 47. The game ends when one remains." No fucking context, no instructions, just that cryptic bullshit. Feeling sick and paranoid, I rushed back home, locking every single lock behind me. The whole thing was too bizarre, too specific, too real. The next morning, news broke. It chilled my spine and left me vomiting into the toilet. A body had been found near the Burger King, dumped by the dumpster behind it. I didn't have to read far to realize who it was. CCTV footage was all over the local news sites. The same guy I'd just awkwardly stolen a note next to was now a corpse, shot twice in the head at point-blank range. Authorities were baffled, but I wasn't. My insides twisted into knots because deep down, I knew I'd just been part of something fucked beyond imagination. For the next week, nothing happened, and paranoia consumed me completely. Every shadow, every person who walked behind me too long, every car parked near my apartment. I couldn't sleep, eat, or function. My co-workers thought I was having a breakdown, and maybe they were right. Then another email came, this time at midnight. Task number 2. You have 24 hours to destroy the life of player number 19. Her name is Emily Collins. Details attached. Refuse or fail and we eliminate you. I clicked on the attachment, nausea rising. It contained explicit photos, social media links, private chats, and even her banking information. Emily Collins was just a random girl about my age, pretty, with a huge Instagram following. She had a life, family, friends, a career. And yet it seemed my job was to annihilate her publicly and financially. The rules were clear: leak her nudes, expose private conversations about drugs and cheating, drain her bank account using the info they provided, ruin her utterly, or they'd kill me instead. Simple as that. I wanted to vomit again. It felt disgusting, wrong, and impossibly fucked up. But my phone vibrated one more time. Another message appeared, short and chillingly personal this time. "We're watching, Chris. Nice hoodie you wore to Burger King, don't disappoint us." They knew exactly who I was, they saw everything. So I did it. God forgive me, I ruined Emily Collins' life. Within hours, Twitter exploded, Reddit threads tore her apart, OnlyFans leaks spread like wildfire, and the girl's entire existence shattered into a nightmare I personally created. She vanished off social media within the day, humiliated and devastated. The sickest part was that afterward, I felt relieved, briefly, because I was still alive. That relief was short-lived because I realized I was now trapped. The tasks would never stop, and the only way out was to keep playing until I was the last one alive. 2 days later, the next email arrived, alongside news that Emily Collins had committed suicide. And now I'm sitting in this motel, knowing the third task will come any minute, knowing I'm already a murderer, knowing that if I stop now, I'm as good as dead. God help me, what have I become? After Emily died, I thought nothing else could shock me. I was wrong. So fucking wrong. I left that shitty motel after barely 2 hours of restless, nightmarish sleep. Every time my eyes closed, Emily's face appeared, staring right through me. Her dead eyes filled with hatred, as if she knew exactly what I'd done. Her death hung on my conscience like a boulder pressing down on my chest, suffocating me. But even worse was the sinking dread of knowing that soon the next email would come. Another life destroyed, or worse, blood on my hands again. I threw my burner phone into a dumpster near a rundown Taco Bell in Denver, picked up another cheap prepaid phone at a 7-Eleven, and drove aimlessly for hours until exhaustion forced me to pull over. It was a gas station parking lot somewhere near Kansas City. Everything felt blurry, disconnected. Time barely made sense anymore. Then my new phone buzzed, the familiar sickening vibration dragging me back into hell. Task number 3. Meet player number 31 at the Motel 6, room 204, off I-70 near Topeka. You have 4 hours. One of you will leave alive. Do not disappoint. I stared at the screen, my heart skipping beats. This wasn't anonymous sabotage or digital blackmail anymore. They wanted me face to face with another victim, another desperate, terrified bastard like myself. I felt the bile rise again, burning my throat as I hunched over the steering wheel, fighting the urge to puke right there in the parking lot. But what choice did I have? I drove the next 3 hours in a numb stupor, my body moving automatically. Motel 6 was exactly what you'd expect. Cheap neon sign flickering, shady guests lurking in the shadows, and the smell of weed and urine heavy in the air. I parked my car behind the building, away from the CCTV cameras, grabbed a rusty tire iron from my trunk, something I'd never even used before, and tucked it awkwardly into my jacket sleeve, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Room 204 was upstairs, the second door from the left. My feet dragged like lead weights up the stairs. Every step closer felt like marching to my execution. The door opened before I even knocked, and a woman stood there, trembling, eyes wide with terror. She looked about 30, brown hair, messy, mascara smeared down her face like she'd been crying for hours. I noticed a kitchen knife shaking violently in her hand. She was just as fucked up as I was, maybe worse. "Please," she whispered, voice cracking. "Please, I have kids. I don't want to do this." Her hand holding the knife was trembling so badly I thought she'd drop it. I raised my hands instinctively, showing I wasn't armed, at least visibly, trying to calm her down. "I don't want this either," I muttered, voice shaking. Let's talk. Maybe there's a way." She lunged at me mid-sentence, a guttural scream escaping her throat, pure desperation driving her. Instinctively I sidestepped, her knife slicing my forearm deeply. Pain exploded through me as blood immediately soaked my sleeve. I stumbled backward, adrenaline spiking. She came at me again, crying hysterically, her sobs mixed with screams of rage and fear. I reacted without thinking, swinging the tire iron from beneath my sleeve, connecting brutally with her shoulder. She screamed and fell back into the room, dropping the knife onto the filthy carpet. Her cries were sharp, animalistic, filled with the agony of someone pushed beyond their limits. "I'm sorry," I croaked, voice barely above a whisper. My vision blurred, ears ringing loudly. "Fuck, I'm so sorry." She curled on the floor, holding her shoulder, eyes filled with tears of hatred and anguish. For a moment, we stared at each other, two broken souls trapped in hell. "Please," she begged again, voice trembling. "They have my kids. They said they'd kill them if I don't finish this." Her words ripped into me harder than any physical blow could. I backed up, slowly, heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. Kids? What the fuck kind of monsters were running this sick game? "I can't," I said weakly, backing toward the door. "I can't fucking kill you, I won't." She pulled herself up to her knees, looking at me with a haunted expression. "If neither of us dies, they kill my children. They fucking told me." My stomach twisted violently. Reality slammed into me. If neither of us finished this, innocent kids would die horribly, and probably us too. It was an impossible choice. "Go ahead," I whispered, feeling tears sting my eyes. "Just fucking do it." She hesitated, her body trembling, then reached for the knife again. I stood frozen, numb with terror and grief. But as her shaking fingers touched the blade, something exploded from the bathroom behind her. A figure in black, ski mask hiding his features, stepping silently into the room. She never saw him coming. The masked man grabbed her hair and yanked her head back violently, exposing her throat. With ruthless efficiency, he sliced the blade across her neck. Blood gushed instantly, spraying onto the filthy carpet, walls, and across my face. Her eyes widened in shock, disbelief etched forever in her final gaze, locked onto mine. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. All I could do was watch helplessly as her body convulsed briefly, then collapsed, dead in seconds. The masked figure let her drop to the floor like garbage and pointed the bloody knife at me, speaking softly, calmly. "That's what happens if you hesitate again," he said, voice devoid of emotion. "Play the game, or you'll suffer far worse than she did." Then he vanished as quietly as he'd come, leaving me in a room soaked in the blood of a woman who'd only wanted to protect her children. I stumbled outside, vomited violently in the parking lot, and collapsed onto the asphalt. Passers-by saw nothing. Nobody even noticed or cared. This was the cruelest part of all. The world kept spinning, blind to the horror I'd just witnessed. Hours later, in another shitty roadside motel, I received a message with a single line. "Congratulations, Chris. You're now player number 12. A news article appeared shortly after, reporting a gruesome murder at Motel 6 near Topeka, with authorities clueless and searching for suspects. Worst of all, buried in the article was mention of the victims' 2 young children found dead hours earlier, strangled in their own beds. I threw up again, sobbing uncontrollably, collapsing onto the dirty carpet of my motel room, realizing the true horror of my situation. They weren't just watching. They controlled everything. They would torture, kill, or destroy anyone who hesitated. The only way out now was to finish this sick fucking game, or die a horrific death myself. I don't think I'll ever sleep again. I stopped sleeping altogether. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. The woman in the motel, her terrified eyes locked on mine as the blood drained from her neck. Worse, I kept picturing her kids, innocent faces I'd never even seen, their small bodies lying lifeless in their beds. It was like my brain was stuck replaying the sickest, most fucked up scenes imaginable. No matter how many times I vomited, how many showers I took, I still felt the hot spray of her blood on my face. I ditched Kansas entirely, just kept driving east, burning through every bit of cash I could pull out of an ATM before destroying each card. I traded my beat-up Corolla for a shitty, older Honda Civic in a run-down used car lot outside of St. Louis, paid cash, no questions asked. At this point, paranoia had me convinced every single car behind me was tailing me. Every security camera felt like a sniper's scope trained on my forehead. 2 days after the motel incident, while hiding out in another anonymous parking lot outside Louisville, my phone buzzed again. I felt a familiar nausea crawling up my throat before even opening the message. "Task number 4. Infiltrate player number 8's apartment and retrieve her phone. Address attached. Do not get caught. You have until midnight." A wave of sick dread washed over me. Breaking into someone's home, real-life burglary, was now on the table. Worse yet, this meant someone else, someone desperate and dangerous like me, might be waiting inside. The thought made my guts twist, but there was no choice. Either do it or end up just like the others. The address was an apartment complex near downtown Cincinnati. I parked my shitty Civic 2 blocks away around 11 p.m., my legs shaking so badly it took several minutes to even get out of the car. Walking up to her building, every instinct screamed at me to turn around, run, and disappear forever. But running meant death, maybe something worse than death. I found apartment 309 on the 3rd floor. The hallway reeked of weed, cigarettes, and something sour I didn't even want to guess at. I pressed my ear against the door, straining for any sounds. Silence. Either she wasn't home or was quietly waiting inside. The lock was old, weak, and it only took me a minute using a shitty tutorial from YouTube and a pocket knife to pop it open. Inside, the apartment was dark, messy, clothes tossed everywhere, empty vodka bottles on the coffee table, half-eaten pizza rotting in a Domino's box. A laptop glowed dimly from the bedroom desk, screensaver drifting lazily. My heart hammered painfully against my ribs. I stepped cautiously into the room, scanning everywhere, searching desperately for her phone. It wasn't on the table or the bed. Then I heard it, a muffled sob coming from the bathroom. I froze completely, blood turning to ice. Slowly, silently, I approached the bathroom door, my hand shaking violently as I nudged it open. The sight inside made my stomach lurch. Player number 8 was sitting fully clothed in the bathtub, knees hugged tight, shaking uncontrollably. She looked barely 20, thin, with stringy blonde hair. Her wide eyes were locked onto mine, filled with an indescribable mix of terror and relief. "Are you here to kill me?" she whimpered, voice broken. "Please, just make it quick." "No," I whispered, throat painfully dry. I just need your phone." She shook her head weakly. "They won't let me give it to you. They said they'll hurt my mum." I felt sick again, the endless cruelty impossible to escape. They'd trapped another innocent victim forced into this twisted game, just like me. I stepped forward cautiously, raising my empty hands. "We can both get out," I said quietly. "We can just fucking run. We disappear, both of us. They can't chase us forever." "You don't understand," she said, breaking into sobs again. "They're everywhere. They're in my fucking phone, my computer. They know everything I do. Every single move." I stared at her, hopelessness crushing my chest. She wasn't wrong. These bastards saw everything, controlled everything. There was no escape. But something caught my eye, something dark and metallic clutched in her trembling hand. A gun. My heart dropped, throat tightening. "Don't!" I pleaded, voice cracking. "Please, just give me the phone so we'll figure something out." But her eyes had already glazed over. She shook her head again, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. This is the only way they'll let me stop playing." Before I could move, before I could even scream, she raised the gun to her temple, closed her eyes, and pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening, echoing brutally in the tiny bathroom, spraying blood and brain matter onto the shower tiles, the floor, my face. My knees buckled instantly. I collapsed against the wall, ears ringing, breath shallow. Her lifeless body slid down slowly, blood pooling around my shoes. I sat there for what felt like eternity, shaking uncontrollably, covered again in someone else's blood, unable to move, unable to cry. Eventually I remembered why I was even there, her phone. Mechanically, numbly, I forced myself to search her pockets, finally finding it tucked inside her jeans. As I pulled it free, the screen lit up with a message. "Excellent work, player number 12. Now eliminate player number 8's mother. Address incoming." A second later, an address flashed on the screen, a suburban home on the outskirts of town. "No," I whispered, voice trembling. "Fuck no, I can't." Then another message appeared. "You have 45 minutes. Failure or refusal will result in immediate consequences for your own family." My heart stopped. My family, my mother, my sister, they hadn't even crossed my mind amidst this chaos. Suddenly I was flooded with horrific images. My mum dead in her kitchen, my sister gutted on her dorm room floor. Bile rose again, choking me. I stumbled from the apartment, nearly slipping in the girl's blood, ran out to my car and drove recklessly to the given address, sobbing hysterically the entire way. The suburban home was dark, quiet, deceptively normal-looking, complete with flower beds and a minivan parked in the driveway. I found myself at the back door, knife clutched desperately in my shaking hand, tears blurring my vision, heart shattering piece by piece. I entered silently, creeping upstairs like a goddamn predator, to a bedroom where a woman, player number 8's mum, slept peacefully, completely unaware her daughter had just died horribly, and I was about to rip her life away too. Standing over her bed, knife raised, I hesitated, choking back vomit. Could I really become a cold-blooded murderer? Could I condemn my own family to a horrific death by refusing? My phone buzzed again, vibrating violently in my pocket. "We're watching, Chris. Kill her now, or your family dies screaming." Shaking violently, tears streaming down my face, I forced my eyes shut, raised the knife high, whispered a tortured apology, and plunged it down into her chest. Her eyes flew open, filled with shocked betrayal, pain, and fear. She gasped, choking on her own blood as I stabbed again and again, driven by sheer terror and desperation. Minutes later, I fled from the house covered in blood, completely broken inside. I couldn't even feel my body anymore. All I felt was numb horror and self-disgust. That night, alone again in another filthy motel room, I collapsed on the floor, praying desperately to die. But instead, another message lit up my phone screen. "Congratulations, you're now player number 4. You're almost there." I threw up violently once more, realizing the sickening truth. The nightmare wouldn't end, not until I was the last one alive. It took 3 days before the final message arrived. 3 days of absolute hell, spent hiding in shitty motels along forgotten highways, popping cheap pills to keep me awake, constantly checking news reports to see if my crimes had caught up with me. My face felt permanently etched with the images of every life I'd ruined, every person I'd killed. By now I'd accepted I wasn't human anymore, just a hollow shell of fear, guilt, and panic. Finally, at 3:23 a.m., the phone vibrated one last time. My heart slammed painfully against my ribs as I opened the message. "Final task, eliminate player number 2, coordinates attached. Only one of you leaves alive." Coordinates, no address, no name, just a location pin dropped in the middle of nowhere, deep in the Pennsylvania woods. It was exactly the kind of place designed to bury someone unnoticed. I knew immediately it was either kill or be killed. No more sabotage, no more threats to family, just straight up survival. By now, I was numb to hesitation. My humanity was long gone. I grabbed a cheap pistol I'd bought off a sketchy dealer behind a strip club in Pittsburgh the night before, tucked it into my waistband, and drove out into the darkness. It felt oddly peaceful, as if the end itself had become comforting in its inevitability. The road eventually gave way to dirt, then to a narrow trail barely wide enough for my car. I parked half a mile away and hiked toward the coordinates, flashlight trembling in my hand. Branches scratched my skin, insects buzzed angrily around my head, but I felt none of it. All I could think about was ending this nightmare. The GPS pinged softly, announcing I'd reached the spot. The forest around me was pitch black, oppressive, silent, nothing but trees, shadows, and dread. I raised my flashlight slowly, scanning around me, but saw nothing. Then a quiet voice echoed through the darkness, coming from behind a cluster of trees. "I've been waiting." I spun, nearly dropping the flashlight. Player number 2 stepped forward, hands raised slightly. He was younger than I expected, mid-20s, disheveled hair, pale skin. His eyes mirrored mine. Hollow, sleepless, haunted. "I don't want to do this," he said, voice weak, shaky. "We don't have to kill each other. Maybe there's a way out. Maybe—" "Stop," I interrupted coldly. "You know there isn't." He swallowed hard, eyes filling with tears, nodding slowly. "They made me kill my best friend, sent me videos of them torturing my brother. I can't fucking live with this shit." My jaw tightened. Sympathy was dangerous now. Compassion had nearly gotten me killed already. I pulled the gun from my waistband slowly, aimed it toward him, finger trembling on the trigger. He flinched, taking a shaky step back. "Please, don't—" "I'm sorry," I whispered, voice cracking. "This ends now." Before I could fire, a gunshot exploded behind me, shattering the silence. Pain seared through my shoulder, white-hot agony dropping me instantly to my knees. My gun slipped uselessly into the dirt. Gasping, vision blurring, I twisted around desperately. Another figure emerged from the shadows, familiar, dressed entirely in black, ski mask pulled down, calmly holding a pistol. The same masked bastard who'd killed that woman in the motel. He slowly removed the mask, revealing a face I recognized instantly from the first video, from the fucking Burger King. The man I'd seen murdered, the one I'd assumed was just another victim. My blood froze. My brain couldn't comprehend the impossible. You fucking died," I stammered, breath ragged. "I saw the news." He smiled calmly, eyes cold as ice. "The game needed a catalyst, Chris. It needed fear. I was never a player. I run this shit. And congratulations, you're exactly who I bet you'd be." My stomach lurched violently, realization crashing down. None of this was random. None of it was chance. I'd been played from the start, just another pawn in a twisted, orchestrated game. He pointed the gun at player number 2 and fired without hesitation. The kid's head snapped back violently, blood exploding outward as he collapsed lifelessly onto the forest floor. I recoiled, gagging, mind spiraling wildly. Why are you doing this? What's the fucking point?" He crouched down, leaning closer. "Entertainment, money, power, take your pick. You see, there's a market for watching desperate people destroy each other. Rich assholes betting millions on how far you'll go. And you, Chris, you've made me a very wealthy man." My entire body shook uncontrollably, pain pulsing through my shattered shoulder, my mind close to snapping entirely. "So, it's over now?" I croaked weakly. "I win?" He laughed softly, coldly. "Almost. You survived longer than the others, but there's still one last detail." He casually pulled another gun from his coat, placing it directly in my trembling hand. His grip tightened around mine, pressing my finger firmly against the trigger. "The winner doesn't get to walk away clean," he whispered. "If you leave here alive, I'll send every bit of evidence we have directly to the FBI. Every murder, every sabotage, your face on every fucking news channel by tomorrow morning. You'll rot in a cell forever." I stared at him blankly, tears streaming uncontrollably. My breath caught painfully in my chest. "Or," he continued calmly, "you end it yourself, here and now, and your family never finds out what you became." He stepped back, watching me coldly, amused. A choice between life as a monster or death as a coward. The gun felt unbearably heavy in my hand. I pictured my mum's face seeing my mugshot plastered on TV, my sister screaming when they dragged me away in cuffs. I pictured myself locked forever in a cell, haunted by every face I'd destroyed. My hand trembled violently, breathing rapid and shallow. I raised the gun slowly, pressing the cold barrel to my temple. Tears blurred my vision, heart shattering completely. "Fuck you," I whispered weakly. Then, from somewhere deep in my gut, primal rage erupted, overpowering the fear and guilt. Before he could react, I twisted my wrist violently, aiming directly at his head, and fired. Blood and skull fragments exploded outward, showering the forest. His body collapsed limply to the ground, eyes wide open in shocked disbelief. I stood there, chest heaving, adrenaline surging painfully through every vein. A moment of silence followed, broken only by my ragged breathing and sobbing. Then my phone buzzed quietly from my pocket. Numbly, I took it out and read the final message. "Congratulations, Chris. You've completed the Last Man Standing challenge. Your reward awaits. Welcome to Level 2. My knees buckled instantly. Level 2? The realization crushed me, robbing me of any hope. This nightmare wasn't over, it was just beginning. And I understood then that I would never escape. Not from them, and certainly not from myself. The phone slipped from my hand, landing softly in the blood-soaked dirt. I'm still in the woods, still covered in blood, writing this down because if someone finds this, maybe, just fucking maybe, it will save someone else. Whatever you do, never click that fucking link.